Welcome to the Leader More podcast. Our motive is to pass on what we've found helpful over the years through leading teams, running operations, and dealing with life's challenges. We hope you enjoy. Morning, Scotty.
Good morning. Got the giggles this morning?
Yeah, take 4 of good mornings. That's how good we're going today.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, last episode we spoke about growing your team, growing capabilities within the team, and we spoke about how we're going to roll into how leadership can be a really big influence on recruitment and retention. And I think starting off talking around retention and the role that leadership can play in hanging on to the team and having them stay within a team and within an organization just based on the style of leadership that they have. Right. And I look back at the link I know with my kids and myself growing up is that, you think about why people won't play sport, why they'll quit a sport. One, they may not like it, but a big one, and studies confirm this, is that they leave because of the coach, right? You look at something that I deal with kids in high school is just around, I don't like this class. Well, why don't you like this class and why are your grades not great? I don't like the teacher.
Yeah,
right?
And it's something that I introspect with a lot because I'm a mature age student.
Mature being the word.
And yeah, I've had similar experiences and it's different for different reasons. Maybe you think that your teacher is unfair, or like in my scenario it was a lot different, whereas I just looked at the teacher and looked at what they were dressed in and I thought, I like this subject, but are people going to look at me the way I look at this educator right now? And I almost fell into the trap of, well, I hate this subject now, but I kind of had to stop myself in that thought process.
Judgmental sort of self there.
Yeah. And just go, no, you know what? I'm not that person. I can still like this subject and not be influenced by what they're wearing today.
Well, I think too with the teacher side of things, like I work with my kids on just about, you can't control the teacher that you have. You have the teacher for the whole year and your goal is to have good grades. Yeah. So it's you got to work this out.
Yeah. I agree.
But that's hard. And it's not to discount where we go, but this is the point that we're talking about, is that relationship with the person that you're working with or the leader can be really pivotal on whether things work or not.
Yeah.
And then you put that across into a business sense, into a sporting sense. The coach, the leader, your line manager that you have has a big part to play on your satisfaction at work. And I think if you look at all the reasons why people will move on from an employer or from a sporting team, there's different things like, closer to home, relocate, more money, I want to progress and this is a good opportunity for me and all that sort of stuff that goes into it. But one that doesn't get spoken about and the one that we sort of want to zero in here on and just the influence that leaders have is they'll leave because they don't like their line manager.
Yeah, he's a dickhead.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
Straight to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, if you boil that down and you look at different experiences that we've had, is that I've left places before because they've just been really unorganized and it's come across really uncaring in how they deal with things. So for instance, they say they're going to do something for me in regards to a contractual thing or a review, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a cross. What? I'm not that important. What is happening here, and then you've got to follow that up. Things like that are important. You get promised something and it falls through. You don't get communicated with things before they come out that directly affect your role or the team that you're working within. Those little things and how people do things, I've sort of found in my experiences, play a big part on that relationship and how I view that line manager or coach.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just a case where you're just and I've been in this scenario before where you're just jumping ship early because you can see that the ship is sinking. Yeah. And I've seen in the past leaders who aren't hitting standards which I think are necessary to hit in order to keep the ship afloat. So you're just jumping ship because you know where this is going. So that's definitely a factor for me.
Yeah, and look, that aligning, call it that, right? You're not aligned with the leader, and the leader's not aligned with you either. So it's not to say that who's the problem here, but it's just to talk about the situation and just how important it is to get it as good as possible and be mindful of. Is that it could well be that the organisation's going in a particular way and the leader's fulfilling the needs of that organisation or team, and you don't align with that. You don't fit. That's okay. You know, and you make a decision on whether you change how you are and align to that, or you move on. That's an important thing from the other side of the coin, for sure.
So if we're kind of establishing the background here of we want to keep retention, right? I can recall some figures off the dome of how much it costs to then, you know, you have people leave and you got to bring people into the organization. Like in-house recruiting can cost up to like $10,000 here in Australia. External recruiting can cost even more. And then you're looking for an executive recruitment, and sometimes it runs into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is insane. What do you think leaders can do then to promote retention?
Well, I think what we've been speaking about, I can't remember how many episodes we're into now, but like you talk about what we want from leaders, and we particularly spoke about that in the first episode in regards to the motives leaders have, and then in the second one around the relationship that you have with a leader. I think it starts there. If you have a good relationship with your leader, and it's not that you're going out on long walks holding hands or anything like that, it's just that you have a really good working relationship where you feel that they're invested in seeing you do well, and they want to work with you and help you grow, and there's some mutual respect there. That's a start. Like if you've got that, you're on a good path. If you don't have that, you know, it's obviously going to be toxic. It's not going to be great. Your output, your performance isn't going to be great because you're in an unhappy situation that's filled with drama. Whether that's from your point of view that you've created that and you're in the wrong, or whether it is the leader, who knows? But that's not the point. The point is it's not a healthy relationship. But then you move forward around what we were talking about last episode, is just around investing in people with time to help them grow, and the capabilities that can provide that's beneficial not just to the individual, but beneficial to the team and the organisation that team is within. So I think if, you know, that question, if, you know, well, what are the positive things? Go and listen to the first 7 episodes, because that's why we've purposely done what we've, you know, how we've laid this out in the order that we've laid this out, is that we are getting to talking about this stuff. Because if you don't have those things in place, this is the problem you're going to have, is that the kid will leave sport, the student will want to not do well in class, and the worker will leave.
And it's actually a good analogy, because especially for the you know, the teacher or the sport one, it's like you have coaches and you have teachers who are just there, who are getting paid to regurgitate information to, you know, your child or a teammate. And then you have those who are truly passionate about their craft, who are, you know, they want to see other people learn these things.
Well, energy you spoke about in one episode, that you look for a leader that is inherently got more energy than you do, right? Because you want to feed off that. And I think you use the analogy of sniffing some petrol, which is I think getting back to your rabbit hole roots or something.
I had a few comments on that.
But that's, you know, you think about what we all do for work, 9 to 5, right? Like sometimes, and the majority of times I would say, is it's pretty uninspiring what we do. So how we do things, the relationships that we have within these organizations is very important to getting to the point of, I like this place, I want to stay here, it fits, I'm aligned, I feel a part of this, and I do not want to leave. You know, and it's not to say that, you know, people are going to stay forever because of that. That's not the point at all. But you are going to have less turnover.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you speak about that inspirational piece, because a lot of people I talk to, and I've had this like discussion with a lot of people where it's like, which industries are most important? And it's clear that people like do have this sense of, well, what I'm doing needs to be important and there needs to be like a reason behind it. Cause, you know, I've heard some pretty whack ones, like even working in IT for a long time, it was, oh, we're the most important. It's like, well, are we? Like, we could always go back to pen and paper.
Here
But
you are in the server room with the aircon on.
yeah,
right.
so it is a huge factor that like sometimes we don't acknowledge is that, yeah, we do want to feel like some of the stuff that we're doing is important. And I guess that's also the role of the leader to instill that importance in their team and go, hey, what we're doing is worthwhile and you should stay here because it is worthwhile.
Well, I think too, inspiration is not necessarily the right word, but if I could elaborate on that for you, is that inspiration I look at is someone making an inspirational speech, you know, and they're, we're going to do this today, we're going to do this. And it's like, okay, right,
One
mate,
person
it's Monday, relax.
In history comes to mind.
It's a discipline thing, right? And you can put that down to working out and exercise, right? Is that, you know, you'll go and watch an inspirational movie, you know, and you'll be all pumped up the next day. Oh, that's inspiration. Which scene? Which
Gosling.
Oh, okay. Look out. So, you know, that inspiration is a short-term thing.
Yeah.
It's the discipline on every day of that leader bringing energy and bringing standards and wanting people to continue, right? It's not me saying, oh, Scotty, we're going to, you know, nail this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, you know, once a week having this inspirational speech. It is the discipline of all the little interactions on where we're heading, you know? And
I actually love that point. It's I'm glad that you...
Yeah, and it's exactly what you mean, because that's how I suppose that word translates for us. But just breaking that down, because it's important to know the actual actions and behaviors.
I agree. I think this is all about breaking it down and making feelings understandable via language to other people. So you have that light bulb moment and go, oh yeah, I get what he's talking about.
That point too, Scotty, just around why people will leave, some stuff on top of what we just spoke about in regards to salary and career progression and all that sort of stuff. But then you think about the other things that people leave for. It's like not feeling valued is a big one. Wanting more feedback is something that pops up a lot. Work-life balance is off. What else?
Even just like craving a challenge.
Challenge, needing some more autonomy. I'm always, he's always, you know, she's always this or he's always this, micromanaging me and just not trust. And, well, you don't trust me to do this, you have to keep checking in on me.
Even nuanced situations, like the one that I think about a lot, because it wigs me out a little bit, is this scenario where I was working with someone and we were transitioning from sites at the time. And there was a little bit of dead space where there wasn't much to do. And I'd kind of made it clear that I get it, there's not much to do. I'm not going to walk past you and go, hey, get back to work sort of thing. I get it. But there was just boredom in the role. And that boredom was kind of causing that person to look elsewhere for opportunities.
Well, improving performance episode, we spoke about people that have a purpose and know what the expectations are happier within the role, even if they're expelling more energy and doing more work. But think of like all those things, they're directly impacted by the leadership style or the company leadership culture, and they can all be worked on. And if I look at different organizations that I've been involved with, I can't think of many that have a real focus on that.
Yeah.
They will focus on lots of little peripheral things, you know, and how things look and what we do for the environment and what we do for this situation and that situation, which is all very good stuff. But people don't want to stay just because of that.
Yeah.
The thing that we're talking about, I feel, is a lot more of a priority for people is, well, how do I get treated? You know, the little things on how I'm led, what my relationship is like with my alignment. That's more important to me than any of this other stuff that we do within the community and all that sort of stuff. It's not to say it's not important, but I want to be treated well too. That's just, you can't just do that and not focus on how you treat your people within the organization.
Right. Do you think it's something that I just thought of? Do you think it's harder for some or for some fields of business than others? Because I know that there are certain industries where it's hard to manage retention and keep people on board because the work itself is just not that fulfilling, or it's like it's just boring or mind numbing.
This is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All the more reason why that should be the focus of how I'm treated. Okay. It's because you don't have a winner in, I'm curing cancer here and I'm doing some really great work. It's going to be my legacy or whatever that means, right? You don't have that.
Yeah.
So how can you, if that's down here, what can you add to that to make that role? And, the leadership style, how people are treated, the relationship they have, how invested they feel that their organization is with them, is an area that I feel just gets lost.
I agree. And I guess my curiosity was around, I wonder if there are certain industries where you need leaders who are more in tune with that sort of thinking than, let's say, curing cancer, because, from a societal perspective, we look at curing cancer and we go, oh my gosh, I'm doing God's work or whatever. So maybe like there's this industry where it's like you need a leader who is very high on those traits that you're talking about and inspiring your team so that you can keep retention. And then that becomes very difficult for the leader because there's less inherent inspiration within the team, right? But it would be interesting to know.
Yeah. But, I think this is, I talk to a lot of teachers, high school teachers, and their role is to teach our children, an inspiring role. How much growth and development do they get from their leaders within that school? And from what I sort of see, and from what I hear, it's not a great deal. And that's not to say that, some schools aren't better than others, but it's like, hey, just because you're doing a really good job doesn't mean that you don't need to be treated well, and doesn't mean that you don't need development and growth as well, because you should. That's important as well. Just because you are doing God's work, as you call it, doesn't mean you don't need it, but it is a lever that you can pull if the work that you're doing is not that great. You're unloading pallets, or you're driving trucks, or you're, whatever it is, you're doing a mundane admin. You don't, obviously that this work isn't going to get you out of bed all the time, but the environment that you're in, the relationships that you have, and how you're treated are three things that will. And the focus that a leader can have on that, and the influence a leader can have on that, can be that.
And I suppose we can all speak to that a little bit, because I know I've been in jobs where it's been like that, particularly in my late teens, early 20s, where it's like you're not setting the world on fire with sort of the work that you're doing. But I remember being in a position particularly where I used to think, wow, this is really boring and mind numbing. But I was so reluctant to quit because I was like, the environment here is so good that I risk going into another position where not only is it mind numbing and boring, but the environment is shit. So,
or it may not be good.
So it was like, well, I'm going to stay here because I think I've hit the jackpots, sort of thing.
Yeah. And you see that. You see younger people go from a good environment where they're treated well and they've got good relationships and all that sort of stuff, and they're invested in, and then go to somewhere else expecting that that's going to be the norm, and they find out real quick that that's not the norm.
Bit of justice. Love seeing that happen too.
Well, and you don't realize, and it's just, that thing with humans is that we think that the benchmark is at a particular level just because that's what we've been used to, right? And then when you actually see something else, it lowers that expectation a bit. Sorry, different.
Well, I was going to add to that. I was going to move on because I thought that you've talked about a lot of tools we can use to retain staff. What about on the flip side? Worst case scenario, we have someone who moves on, maybe just won the lotto for whatever reason.
Yeah, but you're always going to lose people for, even if you're doing a good job, right?
Thoughts on how then you would go about filling that role? Because I know I'm very passionate about this, so I won't get too passionate on air. There are a couple routes, right? You can in-house recruit, you can externally recruit. What are your thoughts on filling that position to optimize performance?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, the hard thing of recruiting from outside is tricky, right? Like, it's not to say that you don't do it, and it's not to say you can't do it. It's just that, and we alluded to it last episode, is that it is so hard to make an educated decision on meeting someone for an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours across, 1, 2, or 3 interviews.
There's so much cost, and that's a part of the cost that goes into it as well.
Yeah, but I just find that, I look back at the times that recruited people, and it's really tricky.
Yeah.
I don't want to start you up here because we'll go down a rabbit hole with all your crap that you'll want to go on and push back on. But it is so hard.
Yeah.
Like you look at that process of checking out a resume. I always found that the resume you get a better vibe on that person, obviously, when you meet them in the first 30 seconds and how they greet, how they're presented, are they on time, how they shake your hand, do they look you in the eye?
Yeah.
You get more of a feel and learn more about that person, obviously, in that first 30 seconds than the 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of a resume.
Yeah.
How trustworthy that resume is another thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, like for me personally, if anyone who reads my resume in the future, it's completely trustworthy. Like there are no, I haven't made any concessions or anything. It's all completely real. And you can call up my references and they'll let you know just how real my resume
references is another one, right?
Yeah.
Not watertight. Is like there's been situations I know that I've given someone a really good reference because I don't want them at my organization anymore.
Yeah. And on the opposite end of that, I've given a plethora of, and you know who you are, I've given a plethora of really good references to like people who aren't like, what on paper I've said they are, purely for the reason that that person, I like them and I want to see them succeed and I want to see them happy. It would be unfortunate to see them disappointed and not do what they want to do in life. So.
Yeah, like we said, we don't want to talk too much about this because there is a lot of art and science that goes into this type of thing. Certainly. And a lot more educated people than us. I know you're passionate about the whole interview process and how the old school interview process is such of just sitting down and talking to someone and talking about their experiences and having the HR script of some of the, talk to me about a time where you were challenged in your position and, like that sort of stuff is you get the best version. And we've seen so many people that have gone through 2, 3, 4 interviews and come out and they are nothing like what they said they're going to be.
Yep.
That's not to say that there's not people that turn out better than what they came across as well. But it is just the point to make there is it's just a tricky situation that takes time, is not perfect, and you are taking a big punt on getting something. Yeah. So what we spoke about last week around working with what you got.
Yeah.
Like instilling from within this environment and standard that people are expected to grow, right? And the tricky one around, the individual doesn't want to. Well, it's like, is it up to the individual or is it up to what the team needs? Well, it should be up to what the team needs to get to that point. And there's some gray area there, but overall in this situation, it should be up to what the team needs. That we don't want to get to that process where we've got to try and recruit and waste time and get someone new in. And you don't even know whether they're going to be any good within the first 6 months. Let's say 3 months, right? To be polite. Let's say you can figure it out after 3 months. You're still figuring it out. But also too, going into a new position, you don't even know yourself whether you want to be there after 3 months sometimes. Is this the right place for me? Do I want to stay here? I don't know about this place. How they do things is a bit different. I don't think I like this. It's not the right choice for me. And then you have 2 or 3 other people calling you up as a candidate because you've gone through this recruitment process. You don't just put out one, resume and hope that comes through. You're putting out hundreds of resumes to get to a point. So you start to get a few calls after you've accepted a role and you're in a role and you start getting these calls and you go, maybe this is a better option. So it's really unreliable that. We don't want to get to that point. Yeah. So what can we do within our power with the talent that we have, and so we don't waste any talent? And it's not to say that we just say, anyone who's in here gets a role. Like that's not what we're saying at all. But work with what you got and see what happens there is a better option, and you have a longer period of time to make that decision.
Yeah. And
what are they like in their current role? What are they like when they step up, when they're out of their comfort zone? How do they respond to that? Is this going to be something that could be worthwhile? Yeah. At the very least, you've got a workable option in the meantime until you get someone who you recruit from outside.
Particularly from my perspective on this topic, what I love about the internal recruiting process is that you actually get, depending on how long that person has been with you, months, years of observational data of, oh, well, this person actually, says this and they do this, they say this and they do this. You kind of skip that phase of, well, who am I getting in an interview? Am I getting the real person? Am I getting the best version of themselves? It's just like, for me, it's a perfect scenario. And not only that, but I think there's this gratitude you get internally from someone that you promote, where it's like, oh, I was noticed. And in turn, maybe that person wants to forward that gratitude by doing a good job.
Well, we spoke about what people do, and what we do is uninspiring in a lot of instances, right? It's quite inspiring to give someone an opportunity. It's quite inspiring to see that person from a leadership point of view do well and nail it. Yep. And be able to pass on some positive feedback. That's inspiring. That makes you go home from work with a spring in your step.
Yeah, and how does the group internalize that as well? Like, oh, one of my peers is now like being promoted. Could that be me?
That's a tangible option for
them. Like that's something that can happen for me now. Like
that's an environment that you want to cultivate. That's for
absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think from again, getting back to that, it's not necessarily the type of work you do, but it's how you do it, the influence you have on people, what you're able to see grow within that team. That can be the stuff that's inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
That gets lost. Scotty, being the old chunk of coal that you are, what think 21. Back think back to when you were younger. What were you looking for in an employer? What were the characteristics you were looking for in a workplace?
So it wasn't necessarily money that I was thinking about, albeit it was, because what I was thinking about was dollars per hour. Because when I was young, that was like my comparison to how well I was doing in comparison to my social group, which was, I'm making this many dollars per hour, I'm making this many dollars per hour. So it wasn't necessarily how much money I had. It was that number of how much dollars per hour can I tell, or what's my bloody salary that I can tell my circle of friends that I can impress them and one up them, sort of thing.
Yeah, but I look back on that and you'll be the same. It's just like, it's not nice to not have money, and it's not nice to be in that situation where, when we were growing up, we didn't have credit cards. Like you either had the cash or you didn't have the cash. Like that was.
Well, maybe when you were growing up.
Oh, come on. But that was the thing. I remember I remember going out when I was younger and there was no Uber. Yeah. There was just taxis. So you'd go out into Northbridge. I would be walking from Northbridge all the way up to Belmont because I knew to get home up in the hills, that's all I could afford. That's all I had left in the pocket to get a cab.
Yeah.
And that's how you worked it. You couldn't just slap it on the credit card or have an Uber and pay for it up front. Just, it wasn't a thing. You go through at 3 a.m, walking, 5 to 10 Ks, you figure out pretty good that, and I don't want to be doing this too much longer.
Yeah, obviously that resonates with me heavily because I was always out and about needing to get home because I was clubbing all the time in my youth.
You're playing with bloody hard drives and shit like that, mate.
Which you need money for unless you scab them out of skip bins like I did.
Yeah, like when you're younger, like I just reflected, I was just thinking about you work to earn money, and that's why we do it in a lot of aspects. And even now I work to pay a mortgage and all this sort of stuff. Don't just do it for charity. So you're always looking for something that will support your lifestyle and what you're doing, whether that be you've got a mortgage and 3 kids or whether you're a single bloke doing dumb things. You're looking at something that supports that. So, that progression of wanting to get a house and get a nicer car and maybe afford a taxi at the end of the night.
Or a hard drive.
Or a better computer or a water-cooled computer or whatever you get your rocks off on. But it's, that sort of stuff becomes, you want to get that, you want to progress.
Yeah.
The older you get though, you start to think about, okay, what type of environment is this? What is the leadership style within this organization? How am I going to be treated? My line manager, what are they like? Do I feel that I would be able to have a good relationship with them?
It's weird because what you're talking about here is like something in psychology called like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it's like at the bottom, you establish security and that you've got a house and shelter, and then you go for other levels of, oh, well, now I want to, feel competent, and then it rises up, and then all of a sudden you become Oprah or something.
Does that mean I'm growing up? Does it?
Yeah, you might have your own talk show one day.
Can't wait. But no, like you don't think about that stuff when you're younger, but that is a really big influence on whether you're going to stay or go.
Yeah.
And I look at that stuff now, and that type of environment, is that going to be good for me? Am I going to be aligned with that? And that doesn't mean it's good or bad. Like there's no get into something there with right or wrong, but
don't start me up. You're already pulling the choke.
But it's just not aligned. It's not a right fit for what you're after or what your personality is or what your needs are, right? So it's not a who's right or who's wrong thing. It's just whether it fits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this going to work or not? And you can pick that up within that interview process and going into a new organization. The phone vetting that you get, you can tell by the type of person and what they talk about and the questions they ask, how timely they are in getting back to you with things. Is it a drawn out process? And this is going to be a business with a lot of red tape. It's going to take a lot of time because they're so slow. Well, are they quick? Are they on the go? Are they, can you relate to them straight away? Are they really thoughtful in regards to the questions they're asking you and wanting to learn more about you as a person and not just what you've done in your career?
It's actually a good, particularly the one in terms of like how are they ready to go? How fast are they progressing this? Because actually I turned down a role recently simply because I thought it was so long-winded and I felt like there was so much space between what was going on. And it was like what I talked about in the beginning. It just seemed like a bit of a red flag. And I'll jump in ship real early. Didn't even get on the boat. Sort of thing. But it's a good point.
Yeah, no, and I think that sort of stuff is the older you get, the more attuned you are to that sort of stuff. And they're the things that I wish I knew earlier. And I look at some of the organizations that I signed on to, and it's just like, oh, I wish I did. And in hindsight, you go into thinking this is going to be great because of this, but then you find out that it's a complete opposite. And that's part of learning and growing up and gaining experience. But the whole point of what we're trying to do here is just pass on some stuff that's been helpful. And certainly those things, if I knew that when I was younger, I'd be a little
Oprah.
I'd be a little bit happier. Be a little bit happier with the decisions that I made. But anyway, it's how it goes. I suppose in summary, not to say that recruiting from outside doesn't work, but it's the age-old thing. Do you get more money or do you save more money, right? And you can look at it from a point of view with that sort of lens in regards to your team. Is like, if you're just putting all your focus on recruiting and getting good people in, well, why don't you work with what you've got and actually save a bit? Spending that time, you made the comment last episode, is like, oh, it mightn't be the right time and it's hard. And I mentioned that a blocker to all this is that people are too busy. But in the end, you just got to find time. Like, it's important. And you can always find time. You can always set some things up and make it, if you are invested enough to seeing it do well. And in the end, you either spend a little bit of time proactively and planned over a period of time to work with the team that you got to upskill them and see what they're like in positions above and to the side and see what they're able to do and grow into. Or you can burn all the time in one big shot when you lose someone. Then your leadership capabilities go, your momentum within your team and business goes, and you're just into this really vicious situation where you could end up being in a negative loop in regards to your momentum and where you're going as a team. Spending that time really working through and building relationships with your team, and that can be hard because it is a time sink. And some people you just don't even want to build a relationship with. But if you neglect those people, they will be the ones that are going to gossip and bicker and be negative about the environment and the team, and they're going to make things worse for you. So
it's a weird idea as well that like the pinnacle of leadership is having those who you hate and who hate you follow you, which is interesting. Having influence over those people. Anyway, that's I guess another topic.
Well, it's a good point though. I like that John C. Maxwell's levels of leadership, right? And you go, level one is that people will follow you only because they're worried about being fired. They follow you because you're the boss, you're the leader, you got the name on the door type thing. Then level two is they follow you because they want to, they respect you, right? And if you look at like probably when he went through all that sort of stuff, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly what year that book was written and when he did all that, but things have changed heaps in that first level. Like, people don't just do what you ask them because of your title, because you can stay in jobs a lot longer and it's a lot harder to move people on. And obviously employees know that, right? And we all know that, right? That is so much harder to move people on these days. And not that that's a bad thing, but I think when you look at those levels of leadership, all the more reason that's not a lever anymore. That's not as potent as it was, is that people don't just look at, oh, you're the boss and they're going to do what you said. They're going to go, oh, whatever.
Yeah, and I guess this is like, the importance of being a leader is that you need to be adaptable to these things. Times change and you kind of have to change with the times sometimes.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, excellent. Thank you, Scott, again.
Yeah, no worries.
Enjoy the rest of your day, mate.
Yeah, I will, definitely. You too. All right.
No,
Until
thanks,
next
mate.
time.
See you. Bye.